The old man sat alone on the park bench, his clothes hanging loose on his frail body as he stared at the half-eaten sandwich in his trembling hands. He hadn't eaten in 3 days. The bread felt like a rock in his palms, and he could barely find the strength to lift it to his mouth. Winter had been harsh in the city, and at 73, William Johnson had nowhere to go. The shelter downtown was full, and his pride wouldn't let him beg on the streets. Just 6 months ago he had an apartment and enough savings to get by. But after the medical bills and the landlord raising the rent, everything fell apart quickly. Now he was just another invisible old man, dying slowly in a city that moved too fast to notice. People walked past him, their eyes deliberately avoiding his. The cold bench had been his bed for nearly a week now. His stomach growled loudly, but the small part of the sandwich he managed to find in a trash can wasn't enough. As he tried to take another bite, the sandwich slipped from his weak fingers and fell to the ground. William stared at it, tears forming in his eyes. He didn't have the energy to bend down and pick it up. This was it, he thought. This was how his life would end, alone, hungry, and forgotten. Jasmine Turner had been watching the old man from across the park. She came to this park every day during her lunch break from the diner where she worked. Today, something about the elderly man caught her attention. She had seen him before, always sitting on the same bench, always alone. But today, when she saw the sandwich fall from his hands and the defeat in his posture, something pulled at her heart. Despite being exhausted from her morning shift and worried about picking up her son from school later, Jasmine walked over to the old man. She had her own lunch packed in her bag. Nothing fancy, just a homemade chicken sandwich and an apple. But it was fresh and made with care. "Excuse me, sir," she said softly, not wanting to startle him. "Would you like to share my lunch? I made too much and can't eat it all." William looked up, surprised at being addressed. His eyes, cloudy with age, focused on the young woman standing before him. She was in her early 30s, with kind eyes and her hair pulled back in a neat bun. She wore a waitress uniform from the local diner. "I don't need charity," he said weakly, his voice barely above a whisper. Jasmine smiled gently. "It's not charity, sir. It's just lunch between two people in the park. My name is Jasmine." William hesitated, his empty stomach arguing with his pride. Finally hunger won. "William," he offered, his voice cracking slightly. "William Johnson." Jasmine sat down beside him and opened her lunch bag. She handed half of her sandwich to William, who took it with shaking hands. They sat in silence for a few minutes as William ate slowly, savoring each bite. "Thank you," he finally said. "It's been a while since I've had a proper meal." "You're welcome, Mr. Johnson," Jasmine replied. "Do you come to this park often?" William looked away embarrassed. "I've been staying here for the past week. Lost my apartment last month." Jasmine felt a pang in her chest. She knew too well how quickly life could change. 5 years ago, she had a comfortable life with her husband, James. Then came the unexpected diagnosis, the quick decline, and suddenly she was a widow at 28 with a 3-year-old son to raise alone. She'd been fighting to stay afloat ever since. "I'm sorry to hear that," she said sincerely. "Is there someone I can call for you? Family?" William laughed bitterly. "My wife passed 10 years ago. My son?" He paused, a shadow crossing his face. "We haven't spoken in nearly 2 decades. Not since his mother and I divorced. He's probably forgotten all about me by now." "I'm sure that's not true," Jasmine said, though she couldn't know for sure. "It doesn't matter now," William said, finishing the last bite of the sandwich. "Thank you for the meal, young lady. You've been very kind." Jasmine looked at her watch. Her break was almost over, and she needed to get back to the diner for the afternoon shift. But she couldn't just leave this elderly man here, especially with the weather forecast predicting rain later. "Mr. Johnson, there's a shelter on Elm Street. I know some people there. They might have space for you tonight." William shook his head. "I've tried. They're full." Jasmine bit her lip, thinking. Her 1-bedroom apartment was tiny, and she already shared the bedroom with her son, Tyler. The living room had just enough space for a small couch. But the thought of this elderly man spending another night in the cold was too much to bear. "Mr. Johnson, I finish work at 5 today. If you're still here, I can take you to my apartment. It's not much, but the couch is comfortable and you'd be warm for the night." William looked at her in disbelief. "You don't know me. I could be dangerous." Jasmine smiled. "Are you dangerous, Mr. Johnson?" "No, but..." "Then it's settled. I'll be back at 5:30 after I pick up my son from after-school care. If you change your mind, that's okay too." As Jasmine walked away to return to work, William watched her go with tears in his eyes. It had been so long since anyone had shown him kindness. He wasn't sure if he would take her up on her offer. His pride was still putting up a fight, but for the first time in weeks he felt a tiny spark of hope. Back at the diner, Jasmine couldn't stop thinking about William. As she served customers and cleaned tables, her mind kept returning to the frail old man on the park bench. She had always been the type to help others, even when she barely had enough for herself and Tyler. Her late husband used to tease her about it, calling her the neighborhood guardian angel. "You can't save everyone, Jazz," James would say with a fond smile. "I don't need to save everyone," she would reply. "Just the ones that cross my path." When her shift ended, Jasmine hurried to pick up Tyler from after-school care. Her son, now 8 years old, was the spitting image of his father. Same bright smile, same curious eyes that seemed to take in everything. "Mom, can we have pizza tonight?" Tyler asked as they walked hand in hand. "Not tonight, sweetie. We might have a guest staying with us." Tyler's eyes widened with interest. "A guest? Who?" "An elderly gentleman who needs a place to stay. His name is Mr. Johnson." "Like a grandpa?" Tyler asked excitedly. He had never known his grandparents on either side of the family. "Something like that," Jasmine said with a smile. "But just for a night or two until we can help him find a better place to stay." They stopped by the park on their way home, and Jasmine was surprised to see William still sitting on the same bench. He seemed to be dozing, his chin resting on his chest. As they approached, he startled awake. "Mr. Johnson," Jasmine called softly. "It's me, Jasmine, from earlier. This is my son, Tyler." William blinked a few times, focusing on the pair standing before him. The boy was looking at him with undisguised curiosity. "Hi, Mr. Johnson," Tyler said brightly. "Mom says you're staying with us tonight. Do you like cartoons? I have some cool ones we can watch." William looked from the boy to Jasmine, his expression a mixture of gratitude and hesitation. "I don't want to impose." "You're not imposing," Jasmine assured him. "We invited you. Can you walk okay, or do you need help?" It took William a moment to stand up, his joints stiff from sitting for so long. He was unsteady on his feet, and Jasmine quickly moved to support him. He was lighter than she expected, and she could feel his bones through his thin jacket. Together, the three of them made their way to Jasmine's apartment, 6 blocks from the park. It was on the 3rd floor of an old building with no elevator, and the climb was slow and difficult for William. By the time they reached her door, he was breathing heavily. "Here we are," Jasmine said, unlocking the door. "It's not much, but it's home." The apartment was small but clean and warmly decorated. There were photos on the walls, mostly of Tyler at different ages, and a few of Jasmine with a man who William assumed was her late husband. A bookshelf filled with children's books stood against one wall, and a small TV sat in the corner. "You can take the couch," Jasmine said, gesturing to the worn but comfortable-looking sofa. "I'll get you some fresh towels if you'd like to shower, and there's plenty of food for dinner." William stood in the middle of the living room, overwhelmed by the simple kindness being shown to him. "Why are you doing this?" he asked quietly. Jasmine looked at him, her expression soft. "Because everyone deserves help sometimes, Mr. Johnson. And today you crossed my path." The morning light filtered through the thin curtains of Jasmine's apartment, casting a warm glow over the living room. William opened his eyes slowly, disoriented for a moment before remembering where he was. The couch beneath him felt like a cloud compared to the hard park bench he'd been sleeping on. A handmade quilt was draped over him, and a small pillow supported his head. For the first time in weeks, he had slept through the night without waking from cold or discomfort. The sound of quiet movement came from the kitchen. William sat up carefully, his old bones protesting slightly, but not as much as they had been. He folded the quilt neatly and placed it at the end of the couch before making his way to the kitchen. Jasmine stood at the stove, flipping pancakes while humming softly. She was already dressed in her diner uniform, her hair pulled back in the same neat bun. Tyler sat at the small table, crayons spread around him as he colored intensely in a superhero coloring book. "Good morning," William said, his voice still rough from sleep. Jasmine turned and smiled. "Good morning, Mr. Johnson. How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in months," he admitted. "Thank you." Tyler looked up from his coloring. "Mom made pancakes. She only makes them on special days." "Is today a special day?" William asked, taking a seat at the table when Jasmine gestured for him to join them. "We have a guest," Tyler said, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. "That makes it special." William's heart warmed at the simple logic of the child. It had been so long since he'd been considered special by anyone. Jasmine placed a stack of golden pancakes in the center of the table, along with a bottle of maple syrup and a bowl of sliced strawberries. It's nothing fancy, she said, but they're Tyler's favorite. They look wonderful, William said sincerely. As they ate breakfast together, William found himself sharing stories from his younger days, working as a carpenter, building homes across the country, meeting his wife at a dance hall in 1972. Tyler listened with wide-eyed fascination, especially when William talked about building a treehouse for his own son many years ago. I wish I had a treehouse, Tyler said wistfully. We don't have a tree, sweetie, Jasmine reminded him gently. Or a yard. William looked between them, an idea forming in his mind. I may not be as strong as I once was, but I still know how to use tools. Maybe I could build you something else instead. A bookshelf, perhaps? Or a desk for your schoolwork? Tyler's eyes lit up. Really? You could build stuff for us. If your mother wouldn't mind, William said, looking to Jasmine. Jasmine hesitated. That's very kind, Mr. Johnson, but you don't need to feel obligated. Please, William said. I'd like to repay your kindness somehow. And it would feel good to work with my hands again. After a moment's consideration, Jasmine nodded. Well, Tyler has been needing a desk for his homework. But let's get you back on your feet first, okay? William agreed, though privately he wondered what back on his feet would look like at his age with no home and no savings. But for now, he pushed those thoughts aside and enjoyed the simple pleasure of a shared breakfast. After they finished eating, Jasmine checked the time. I have to get to work and Tyler needs to get to school. She looked at William. You're welcome to stay here today, Mr. Johnson. Rest, watch TV, whatever you need. There's food in the fridge for lunch. William was touched by her trust. Thank you, Jasmine. I promise I won't disturb anything. I know you won't, she said with a smile. We'll be back around 5. After Jasmine and Tyler left, William looked around the small apartment. Despite its size, it felt like a real home, lived in, loved, and full of warmth. It was a stark contrast to the lonely, empty apartment he'd lost, which had never felt like home after his wife died. With nothing else to do, William decided to make himself useful. He washed the breakfast dishes, swept the kitchen floor, and straightened up the living room. It wasn't much, but it felt good to contribute. As he worked, he noticed small things that needed fixing around the apartment. A loose cabinet door, a dripping faucet, a window that didn't close properly. All things he could easily repair with the right tools. Around noon, William made himself a simple sandwich from the supplies Jasmine had shown him in the refrigerator. As he ate, he spotted a stack of bills on the counter, partially hidden under a cookbook. He didn't mean to pry, but he couldn't help noticing a past due notice on top. He quickly looked away, feeling like he'd intruded on something private. It was clear that Jasmine was struggling financially, yet she had opened her home to a stranger. The realization made William even more determined to find a way to repay her kindness. After lunch, fatigue overcame him and he dozed on the couch for a while. When he woke, it was nearly 4 o'clock. Wanting to do something nice for Jasmine and Tyler, he decided to prepare dinner. He wasn't much of a cook, but he could manage a simple meal. In the freezer, he found some chicken breasts, and the pantry yielded rice and canned vegetables. By the time Jasmine and Tyler returned home, William had a hot meal waiting for them. Mr. Johnson, Tyler exclaimed as they walked through the door. Did you cook dinner? William nodded, suddenly nervous. I hope that's all right. I wanted to thank you both. Jasmine looked surprised and touched. It's more than all right. It's wonderful. She sniffed the air appreciatively. It smells delicious. They sat down to eat together, and William felt a sense of belonging he hadn't experienced in years. Tyler chatted excitedly about his day at school, and Jasmine talked about a generous tip she'd received from a regular customer at the diner. By the way, she said, turning to William, I asked around at work today. One of our regular customers runs a senior living facility on the other side of town. They might have a room opening up next week. It's subsidized for low-income seniors. William's heart sank a little. Of course he couldn't stay here indefinitely. This was temporary kindness, not a permanent solution. That's very thoughtful of you, he said. And until then you can stay with us, Jasmine continued. If you'd like to, that is. Are you sure? William asked. I don't want to be a burden. You're not a burden, Jasmine said firmly. Actually, it's nice having another adult around. And Tyler clearly enjoys your company. As if to confirm this, Tyler looked up from his plate. Can Mr. Johnson read me a story tonight? He does really good voices. Jasmine laughed. If he's not too tired, I'm sure he would. William found himself smiling. I'd be happy to. Later that evening, after Tyler was in bed and Jasmine was folding laundry in the living room, William broached the subject he'd been thinking about all day. I noticed some things around the apartment that need fixing, he said. With a few basic tools I could take care of them for you. Jasmine looked up from the laundry. You don't have to do that, Mr. Johnson. William, please, he said. And I want to. I was a carpenter for 40 years. Fixing things is what I do. Jasmine considered this. Well, the landlord isn't exactly quick to make repairs. What kind of tools would you need? William listed a few basic items. A screwdriver set, a hammer, some nails, a wrench. Nothing fancy or expensive. I think my late husband's tools are still in the storage closet, Jasmine said. I've never had the heart to get rid of them. You're welcome to use those. The next day was Saturday and Jasmine didn't have to work. After breakfast, she retrieved a dusty toolbox from the hall closet and handed it to William. Their fingers brushed briefly during the exchange, and William felt an unexpected warmth spread through him. These were James's, Jasmine said softly. He was always fixing things around here too. William opened the toolbox carefully, finding a well-maintained collection of basic tools. He took good care of these. He took good care of us, Jasmine said, a hint of sadness in her voice. Then shaking it off she added, Tyler and I are going grocery shopping. Is there anything special you'd like us to get? William shook his head. Anything is fine. I'm not picky. After they left, William got to work. He tightened the loose cabinet hinges, fixed the dripping faucet, and adjusted the window so it closed properly. With each repair he felt more useful and alive than he had in months. By the time Jasmine and Tyler returned with groceries, he had fixed most of the minor issues in the apartment. Mr. Johnson, this is amazing. Jasmine exclaimed as she tested the newly repaired window. It hasn't closed properly since we moved in. Just needed a little adjustment, William said modestly, though he felt a surge of pride. That evening, as they shared another meal together, William noticed how Jasmine seemed more relaxed than she had been. Tyler had warmed to him completely, chattering away and asking William to tell more stories about building things. As William prepared for another night on the couch, he realized that in just 2 days, this small apartment with these two kind people had begun to feel more like home than anywhere he'd been in years. The thought both comforted and frightened him. He knew this arrangement was temporary, and soon he would need to move on to the senior living facility Jasmine had mentioned. But for now, he would enjoy each moment and continue to find ways to repay the kindness that had been shown to him. Tomorrow he would see about building that desk for Tyler. A week passed, and William had become an integral part of Jasmine and Tyler's daily routine. Each morning he would wake up early to prepare breakfast before Jasmine left for work. During the day while Tyler was at school, William would work on various projects around the apartment. Using James's tools and some scrap wood he'd found behind a nearby hardware store, he had already built Tyler a small desk that fit perfectly in the corner of the bedroom. The senior living facility Jasmine had inquired about had called to say they wouldn't have an opening for at least another month. Privately, William was relieved. He wasn't ready to leave the warmth of this makeshift family just yet. On this particular morning, Jasmine was home. It was her rare day off from the diner. Tyler had gone to a friend's house for a playdate, leaving Jasmine and William alone in the apartment. They sat at the kitchen table, sharing a pot of coffee and comfortable conversation. I can't believe how much you've done around here, Jasmine said, looking around the apartment with appreciation. The place hasn't looked this good since James was alive. William smiled, pleased by her approval. It gives me purpose. Something to focus on besides my own problems. Jasmine studied him over the rim of her coffee cup. In the week since she'd found him on that park bench, William had transformed. His face had filled out a bit and some color had returned to his cheeks. He had trimmed his beard and combed his hair neatly. In clean clothes, some of James's old things that Jasmine had kept, he looked dignified and grandfatherly. Can I ask you something personal? Jasmine ventured. William nodded. Of course. You mentioned you have a son. That you haven't spoken in years. Do you ever think about reaching out to him? William's expression clouded slightly. Every day, he admitted. But it's complicated. Family usually is, Jasmine agreed. What happened between you two, if you don't mind my asking? William sighed, setting down his coffee cup. My son Richard grew up watching me and his mother fight constantly. I was away working most of the time, building houses across the country. Good money, but it meant I missed a lot of his childhood. By the time he was a teenager, he was angry and rebellious. When his mother and I finally divorced, he was 17. He blamed me entirely. That must have been difficult, Jasmine said softly. It was. But the real break came later. Richard was always brilliant, got into a prestigious business school, started his own company right after graduating. When it began to take off, he asked me to invest my retirement savings. I refused. I didn't understand his business model and it seemed risky. He saw it as one more way I didn't believe in him. And the company? Did it succeed? William laughed mirthlessly. Beyond anyone's wildest expectations. He became wealthy almost overnight. Last I heard, he's some kind of tech billionaire now. And here I am, homeless at 73. Jasmine reached across the table and placed her hand over his. Have you tried to contact him recently? William shook his head. What would I say? Sorry I didn't believe in you, son. By the way, I'm destitute now. He'd think I was just after his money. Or maybe he'd be happy to know his father is alive and wants to reconnect, Jasmine suggested gently. Before William could respond, Jasmine's phone rang. She checked the caller ID and frowned. It's Tyler's school. Excuse me. William watched as Jasmine's expression changed from concern to alarm as she listened to the person on the other end of the line. Yes, I understand. I'll be right there, she said before hanging up. What's wrong? William asked. Tyler fell during recess and may have broken his arm. I need to get to the school right away and take him to the emergency room. Jasmine was already on her feet, searching frantically for her purse and keys. I'll come with you, William offered immediately. Jasmine hesitated. You don't have to. I want to, William insisted. You shouldn't have to handle this alone. Gratitude flashed across Jasmine's face and she nodded. Thank you. They hurried to the school where they found Tyler in the nurse's office, his face streaked with tears as he cradled his left arm. The moment he saw them, he cried out, Mom! Mr. Johnson. Jasmine rushed to her son's side, carefully examining his swollen arm without touching it. Oh, sweetie. What happened? Between sniffles, Tyler explained how he had fallen from the monkey bars. William stood nearby, his heart aching for the boy's pain. The school nurse approached them. He needs to go to the emergency room for an X-ray. The arm is possibly broken. Jasmine nodded, her face pale with worry. We'll take him right away. As they left the school, Jasmine flagged down a taxi, her hands shaking slightly as she helped Tyler inside. William could see the fear in her eyes, not just for her son's injury but for what this might mean financially. An emergency room visit, X-rays, possibly a cast. None of that would be cheap even with insurance. At the hospital, they waited for nearly 2 hours before Tyler was seen by a doctor. William sat with them the entire time, distracting Tyler with stories and gentle jokes to keep his mind off the pain. Jasmine alternated between comforting her son and filling out endless forms, her brow furrowed with concern. When the doctor finally confirmed that Tyler's arm was indeed broken and would need a cast, Jasmine bit her lip, clearly calculating costs in her head. William wished desperately that he had money to help, but he had nothing to offer except his presence and support. After Tyler's arm was set in a bright blue cast, his choice of color, they were directed to the billing department. Jasmine asked William to stay with Tyler while she spoke with the hospital staff about payment options. Does it hurt a lot? William asked Tyler once they were alone. Tyler shook his head bravely. Not anymore. The doctor gave me medicine. But Mom looks sad. She's just worried about you, William assured him, though he knew there was more to it than that. Is she worried about money again? Tyler asked with the innocent directness of a child. I heard her crying about bills last month. William's heart sank at this glimpse into the struggles Jasmine faced daily. Your mom is very strong, he told Tyler. And very smart. She'll figure everything out. When Jasmine returned, her expression was carefully composed, but William could see the tension in her shoulders. As they left the hospital, she was unusually quiet. Back at the apartment, William prepared dinner while Jasmine helped Tyler get comfortable on the couch with his newly casted arm propped on pillows. The boy, exhausted from the day's events, fell asleep almost immediately. When Jasmine joined William in the kitchen, her composure finally cracked. Tears welled in her eyes as she slumped into a chair. The hospital bill is going to be over $1,000 even with my insurance, she whispered, trying not to wake Tyler. And I'll need to take tomorrow off to stay with him, which means no tips. I don't know how I'm going to cover this month's rent now. William sat beside her, wishing he could do more to help. Is there anyone you can borrow from? Family? Jasmine shook her head. My parents are barely getting by themselves. And James's family, we haven't been close since he died. She wiped away a tear. I'm sorry. You don't need my problems on top of your own. Hey, William said gently, what was it you told me that first day? Everyone deserves help sometimes. That includes you, Jasmine. She managed a small smile. Thank you for being here today. I don't know how I would have managed alone. You would have managed, William said confidently. You're the strongest person I've met in a long time. But you don't have to do everything alone. Later that night, after Jasmine had gone to bed, William sat in the dark living room deep in thought. Seeing Jasmine struggle with the hospital bills had stirred something in him. Though he had nothing to give financially, there was one thing he could do, something he should have done years ago. Tomorrow he decided he would try to contact his son. Not to ask for money for himself, but to see if Richard might be willing to help Jasmine and Tyler. It was a long shot given their estrangement, but William had to try. These two people had shown him such kindness. He couldn't stand by and watch them suffer when there might be a way he could help. With that resolution made, William closed his eyes, praying that after all these years, his son might at least be willing to listen. The next morning, William woke before dawn, his mind already racing with thoughts of how to contact his son. He had no phone, no computer, and no idea where Richard lived now. The task seemed almost impossible, but William was determined. He prepared breakfast quietly, not wanting to wake Jasmine or Tyler. While the coffee brewed, he searched through the kitchen drawers until he found a notepad and pen. Sitting at the table, he began to draft a letter to his son. "Dear Richard," he wrote and then paused. What could he possibly say after nearly 20 years of silence? How could he explain his current situation without sounding like he was begging for help? And most importantly, how could he convince Richard to help Jasmine and Tyler, people his son had never met? After several false starts and crumpled pages, William finally completed a letter that felt right. It was honest, humble, and focused not on his own needs but on the kindness Jasmine had shown him and the difficulties she now faced. As he sealed the letter in an envelope, Jasmine entered the kitchen, looking tired but managing a smile. "You're up early," she observed. "Couldn't sleep," William admitted. "How's Tyler?" "Still sleeping. The pain medication makes him drowsy." She poured herself a cup of coffee and sat across from William. "What's that?" she asked, noticing the envelope. William hesitated. "A letter. To my son." Jasmine's eyes widened slightly. "You're going to contact him?" "I'm going to try," William said. "But I don't even know where to send this. I have no address, no phone number." "What's his full name? Maybe we could look him up online." "Richard Johnson," William said. "Though that's a pretty common name. His company was called Summit Tech, last I heard." Jasmine's coffee cup froze halfway to her lips. "Summit Tech? As in the Summit Tech?" William shrugged. "I don't know. Is it well known?" "Well known? It's only one of the biggest tech companies in the country." Jasmine set down her cup and stared at William. "Your son is Richard Johnson of Summit Tech? You've heard of him?" William asked, surprised. "Everyone has heard of him. He's in the news all the time, new products, charitable foundations, that space tourism project he's funding." Jasmine shook her head in disbelief. "I had no idea. You never mentioned his company was so successful." "I knew he had done well," William said, "but I've been out of touch for so long. I don't follow business news." Jasmine stood up suddenly. "Wait here. I have an idea." She disappeared into the bedroom and returned a moment later with a tablet. Sitting back down, she began tapping on the screen. "Let's see. Summit Tech headquarters." She turned the tablet so William could see. "Is this your son?" William stared at the image on the screen. It showed a man in his early 40s, dressed in an expensive suit, standing in front of a sleek glass building. Though older than when William had last seen him, Richard's features were unmistakable. The same sharp jawline, the same intense eyes. "That's him," William confirmed, his voice thick with emotion. It had been so long since he'd seen his son's face, even in a photograph. "According to this," Jasmine said, reading from the screen, "Summit Tech's main headquarters are in the city, just downtown. About 20 minutes from here by bus." William's heart raced. His son had been so close all this time. "Do you think I could just go there? Try to see him?" Jasmine looked uncertain. Corporate headquarters like that usually have pretty tight security. You can't just walk in and ask to see the CEO. "But," she thought for a moment, "we could try sending an email. Most companies have contact information on their websites." Together, they composed an email to the general contact address listed on the Summit Tech website. It was brief, simply stating that William Johnson, father of Richard Johnson, was trying to reach his son regarding an important personal matter. They included Jasmine's phone number as a contact. "Don't get your hopes up," Jasmine warned gently after they'd sent it. These general emails probably get hundreds of messages a day. It might never reach him. William nodded, trying not to feel discouraged. It's worth a try. As they prepared for the day ahead, William couldn't stop thinking about how close his son was physically, yet how distant they remained emotionally. What would Richard think if he knew his father had been homeless, just miles from his corporate headquarters? Would he care? Or had the bitterness between them grown too deep over the years? Jasmine stayed home from work to care for Tyler, who was in good spirits despite his broken arm. The boy was delighted to have both his mother and William home for the day and insisted they play board games together. As they set up a game of Monopoly on the living room floor, with William helping Tyler manage his properties due to his casted arm, Jasmine's phone rang. She checked the caller ID but didn't recognize the number. "Hello," she answered cautiously. William watched as her expression changed from neutral to surprised. She glanced at him, her eyes wide. "Yes, he's here with me right now," she said into the phone. "May I ask who's calling?" There was a pause. "I see. Yes, of course. Just a moment." She held the phone out to William. "It's someone from Summit Tech. An assistant to Richard Johnson." William's hand trembled as he took the phone. "Hello," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Mr. Johnson?" A professional female voice responded. "This is Aisha Reynolds, executive assistant to Richard Johnson. We received your email regarding your attempt to contact Mr. Johnson. May I ask what this is concerning?" William glanced at Jasmine, who gave him an encouraging nod. I'm his father. We haven't spoken in many years, but I'm hoping to reconnect." There was a brief silence on the other end. "I see," Aisha finally said. "Mr. Johnson is extremely busy, as you can imagine. His schedule is booked solid for the next several weeks." William's heart sank. "I understand," he said quietly. "However," Aisha continued, "given the nature of your request, I've been instructed to gather some information. Where are you currently staying, Mr. Johnson? We'll need to verify your identity." William explained his current situation, staying with Jasmine and Tyler. He provided Jasmine's address and his date of birth when asked. Aisha's tone remained professional, giving no indication of whether this information would actually reach Richard. "Thank you, Mr. Johnson. If Mr. Johnson decides to respond, we'll be in touch." After hanging up, William handed the phone back to Jasmine, trying not to show his disappointment. "His assistant," he explained. "She took my information, but I doubt anything will come of it." Jasmine squeezed his hand sympathetically. "At least it's a start," she said. "They didn't just ignore the email." "When will the billionaire come see us?" Tyler asked excitedly, having overheard parts of the conversation. "We don't know if he will, buddy," Jasmine explained gently. "Mr. Williams' son is very busy." "But he's super rich, right?" Tyler persisted. "Rich people can do whatever they want." William smiled sadly. "It's not that simple, Tyler. Sometimes, even with all the money in the world, there are things you can't fix easily. Like hurt feelings and old mistakes." They returned to their board game, but William found it hard to concentrate. The brief contact with Richard's world, even just through his assistant, had stirred up a whirlwind of emotions. Hope, fear, regret, and longing all battled within him. The rest of the day passed uneventfully. By evening, William had resigned himself to the likelihood that Richard would choose not to respond. He busied himself with cooking dinner, focusing on creating a meal that Tyler could eat easily one-handed. As they cleared the dinner dishes, Jasmine's phone rang again. The same unknown number appeared on the screen. "It's them again," she said, looking at William with wide eyes before answering. "Hello." William held his breath as Jasmine listened to the caller. "Yes, he's still here. Tomorrow morning at 10? I understand. Yes, I can give him the message." When she hung up, her expression was a mixture of shock and excitement. That was Richard's assistant again. "He wants to meet you tomorrow morning at 10 at the Summit Tech headquarters." William felt lightheaded suddenly, and he gripped the edge of the counter for support. "He's actually willing to see me?" "Apparently so," Jasmine said. "The assistant said a car will be sent to pick you up at 9:30. "A car?" William repeated, overwhelmed by this development. I don't know what to say to him after all this time." "You'll find the words," Jasmine assured him. "Just speak from your heart." That night William barely slept. He lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, rehearsing what he might say to his son. Should he apologize first? Ask about Richard's life? Explain his own circumstances? By morning he was exhausted but too nervous to feel it. Jasmine helped him prepare for the meeting, ironing one of James's old dress shirts for him to wear and making sure he had a good breakfast, though William could barely eat. Tyler, excited by the prospect of William meeting his billionaire son, had made a drawing for Richard, which he insisted William take along. At precisely 9:30, a sleek black car pulled up in front of the apartment building. The driver, dressed in a crisp uniform, came to the door and asked for William Johnson. "That's me," William said, his voice unsteady. Jasmine straightened his collar one last time and squeezed his arm. "Good luck. Remember why you're doing this." William nodded, grateful for her support. "Thank you for everything, Jasmine." The drive to Summit Tech headquarters was short but felt like an eternity to William. As they approached downtown, the buildings grew taller and more modern. Finally, they pulled up in front of an impressive glass tower with Summit Tech emblazoned across the top in sleek silver letters. The driver escorted William through the lobby, where security checked his ID and issued him a visitor's badge. Everything was polished, efficient, and intimidating. They took an elevator to the top floor, and William's stomach lurched, both from the rapid ascent and from nervous anticipation. When the elevator doors opened, they revealed a spacious reception area with panoramic views of the city. A young woman sitting behind a desk stood up as William approached. "Mr. Johnson? I'm Aisha Reynolds. We spoke on the phone yesterday. Mr. Johnson is expecting you." She led him down a corridor to a set of large double doors. "He's on a call at the moment but asked me to show you in. He'll be with you shortly." With that, she opened the doors and gestured for William to enter. The office was massive, with floor-to-ceiling windows on three sides offering a breathtaking view of the city skyline. Modern art hung on the walls, and a large desk made of glass and chrome dominated one end of the room. William stood awkwardly in the center of the office, clutching Tyler's drawing and feeling completely out of place in this world of wealth and power. As he waited, he noticed a collection of framed photographs on a sideboard. Moving closer, he was startled to see a young version of himself in one of them. A family photo taken when Richard was about 10 years old, all three of them smiling at a beach somewhere. The fact that Richard had kept this photo all these years gave William a flicker of hope. Suddenly, the door behind him opened. William turned and there stood his son, older, more polished, but unmistakably Richard. He wore an expensive suit and a guarded expression as he studied his father. "Hello, Dad," Richard said formally, closing the door behind him. "It's been a long time." Time seemed to stand still as father and son faced each other across the vast expanse of the executive office. William drank in the sight of his son, noting all the changes the years had brought, the touches of gray at Richard's temples, the fine lines around his eyes, the confident posture of a man who had achieved great success. Yet beneath these changes, William could still see traces of the boy he had once known. "Richard," William finally managed, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for seeing me." Richard moved to his desk, gesturing for William to take one of the chairs opposite. "Your email was quite a surprise," he said, his tone neutral and controlled. "My assistant said you're staying with someone named Jasmine Turner?" William nodded as he lowered himself into the chair. "Yes. She found me in the park about 2 weeks ago. I was..." He hesitated, swallowing his pride. "I was homeless, Richard. Have been for some time now." Something flickered in Richard's eyes, surprise perhaps or concern, but it quickly vanished behind his professional facade. "I see. And how exactly did you end up in that situation?" There was no accusation in the question, just clinical interest, as if William were a business case to be analyzed. It stung, but William understood. His son had built walls over the years just as he had. "After your mother died, I couldn't keep up with the medical bills. Then the recession hit and construction jobs dried up. At my age, no one was hiring. I managed for a while on my savings, but eventually..." William spread his hands in a gesture of defeat. "I lost everything." Richard leaned back in his chair, studying his father. "Why didn't you reach out before it got to that point?" The question hung in the air between them, loaded with 2 decades of unspoken history. William could hear the real questions behind it. "Why did you only contact me when you needed something? Why now, after all these years?" "Pride, I suppose," William admitted. "And shame. And the knowledge that I hadn't been there for you when you needed me. I didn't think I had the right to ask for your help." "So what changed?" Richard asked. William looked down at the drawing he still held in his hands, Tyler's colorful depiction of what he imagined a billionaire's office might look like, complete with a robot assistant and a helicopter pad on the roof. The sight of it reminded him why he was really here. "Jasmine and her son Tyler changed everything," William began. "This woman, who barely has enough for herself and her boy, took me in without hesitation. Gave me food, shelter, kindness." His voice broke slightly. She reminded me what family really means. Richard's expression remained impassive, but he was listening intently. I'm not here for myself, Richard, William continued. I'm here for them. Tyler broke his arm a few days ago. The medical bills are more than Jasmine can handle, on top of her regular expenses. She's a waitress raising her son alone after her husband died. She works so hard, but it's never quite enough. So you came to ask for money, Richard concluded, his tone hardening slightly. William shook his head emphatically. No. I came to reconnect with my son. The only reason I'm mentioning their situation is because Jasmine helped me when no one else would, and now she's in trouble. If there was any way I could help her myself, I would. Richard stood and walked to the window, his back to William as he gazed out at the city below. The silence stretched between them, tense and heavy with unresolved feelings. Why did you keep that old photo? William asked suddenly, nodding toward the family beach picture on the sideboard. Richard turned, following William's gaze to the photograph. For the first time, his carefully maintained composure wavered. Mom sent it to me after the divorce, he said quietly. Before she got sick. Another silence fell, less tense than before but filled with shared grief. I visit her grave once a year, Richard finally said. On her birthday. I always wondered if I might see you there someday. I go on the anniversary of her death, William replied softly. Every year. A ghost of a smile touched Richard's lips. We've been missing each other all this time. I've missed you every day, son, William said, the words coming straight from his heart. Not just at the cemetery. Every single day. Richard returned to his desk but remained standing, his fingers drumming lightly on the polished surface. When you refused to invest in my company, he said abruptly, I was convinced it was because you didn't believe in me. That you never had. It wasn't that, William insisted. I was scared, Richard. Scared of losing what little security I had. Scared of failing you if things went wrong. He paused, then added with painful honesty, but you're right that I didn't understand your vision. You were always smarter than me, always seeing things I couldn't see. Richard's expression softened slightly. I wanted your approval more than your money, he admitted. When you said no, it felt like the final rejection. I'm sorry, William said simply. I've had a lot of time to think about my mistakes. Too much time. Richard sat down again, his professional mask slipping to reveal a glimpse of the hurt young man beneath the successful CEO. So am I, he said. I was stubborn and angry. When Mom got sick, I should have tried harder to reach out to you to heal things between us. For the first time since entering the office, William felt a flicker of hope. The fact that Richard acknowledged his own part in their estrangement suggested he wasn't entirely closed to reconciliation. It's never too late to try again, William said quietly. Richard didn't respond directly to this. Instead, he picked up his phone and pressed a button. Aisha, could you come in here, please? And bring the information I asked you to gather. A moment later, the assistant entered with a folder, which she handed to Richard before discreetly leaving again. Richard opened it and scanned the contents briefly. I had my team do some checking after your call yesterday, he explained. Jasmine Turner. 33 years old. Widowed 5 years ago when her husband died of leukemia. Works at Sunnyside Diner. Son Tyler, age 8. Apartment on the east side. Outstanding medical bill of $1,280 from City Hospital for treatment of a broken arm. He looked up at William. Is that all accurate? William nodded, slightly uncomfortable with the thoroughness of Richard's investigation but not surprised by it. Yes, she's a good person, Richard. One of the best I've ever known. And your relationship with her is? Richard left the question hanging. She's my friend, William said simply. She showed me kindness when I needed it most. Richard closed the folder and leaned forward, his expression serious. Dad, I appreciate you coming here today. And I believe your concern for this woman and her son is genuine. But you have to understand, after 20 years of silence, it's difficult for me to just pick up where we left off. William's heart sank, but he nodded. I understand. That said, Richard continued, I do want to help Miss Turner and her son. Not just with the medical bills but in a more sustainable way. He pressed another button on his phone. Aisha, can you set up a meeting with the foundation team for this afternoon? And establish a new case file for Jasmine Turner. Turning back to William, he explained, Summit Tech has a charitable foundation. We provide educational scholarships, medical assistance and other support to families in need. I think Miss Turner might qualify for several of our programs. That's very generous, William said, touched by Richard's willingness to help. As for you, Richard continued, his tone becoming more businesslike again. I'll have Aisha arrange temporary housing at one of our corporate apartments while we figure out something more permanent. And there might be a position for you at the foundation if you're interested. We run a mentorship program pairing skilled retirees with at-risk youth. Your carpentry experience could be valuable there. William was overwhelmed by this unexpected turn of events. Richard, I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything, Richard replied, standing to indicate the meeting was concluding. This isn't charity, Dad. It's an opportunity, for both of us. As William rose from his chair, he remembered Tyler's drawing. Before I go, he said, holding it out, Tyler made this for you. He was very excited when he heard I was meeting a real billionaire. Richard took the drawing, a genuine smile breaking through his professional demeanor as he examined the child's colorful imagination. Robot assistant, huh? Maybe not such a bad idea. He carefully placed the drawing on his desk. I'd like to meet them, Jasmine and Tyler. Would they be available for dinner this weekend? William's surprise must have shown on his face because Richard added quickly, purely to discuss the foundation's assistance, of course, and to get to know the people who helped my father. I'm sure they'd be honored, William said, hope blooming in his chest. This was more than he had dared to expect from this meeting. Richard walked him to the door, maintaining a professional distance but with less tension than when William had arrived. Aisha will be in touch about the apartment and the dinner arrangements, he said. And Dad. He hesitated, then added quietly, it was good to see you. You too, son, William replied, fighting back tears. You too. As the elevator descended, William let out a long, shaky breath. The meeting hadn't been the warm reunion he might have dreamed of, but it was a beginning. Richard had been willing to listen, willing to help, willing to take a small step toward healing their relationship. For now, that was enough. The same driver was waiting to take William back to Jasmine's apartment. As they drove through the city, William gazed out at the streets with new eyes. For the first time in months, perhaps years, he felt something he'd almost forgotten, hope for the future. Jasmine was waiting anxiously when William returned to the apartment. Tyler was at school, so they had the place to themselves. The moment William walked through the door, Jasmine jumped up from the couch. How did it go? She asked, searching his face for clues. William smiled, the weight of years lifting from his shoulders. He listened. Actually listened. Jasmine guided him to the couch, where he recounted the entire meeting. Richard's initial coolness, their cautious conversation about the past, and the unexpected offer of help through the foundation. And he wants to have dinner with all of us this weekend, William concluded. To discuss the details and to meet you and Tyler. Dinner with a billionaire? Jasmine looked stunned. I don't have anything to wear for something like that. And Tyler, he's just a kid. What if he says something embarrassing? William took her hand reassuringly. Richard knows who you are, Jasmine. He's not expecting some society lady. He wants to meet the kind, hard-working woman who helped his father. Jasmine bit her lip, still looking uncertain. Are you sure about this? I don't want to be anyone's charity case. It's not charity, William echoed Richard's words. It's an opportunity. For all of us. Later that afternoon, Richard's assistant called with details. A corporate apartment had been prepared for William, and a car would come the following day to take him there. The dinner was scheduled for Saturday evening at a restaurant called Azure, which Jasmine recognized as one of the most exclusive in the city. After hanging up, Jasmine looked overwhelmed. Azure? That place is impossible to get into. People make reservations months in advance. Not if you own the building, William pointed out with a small smile. Richard mentioned he has real estate investments throughout the city. The next day was a whirlwind of activity. Richard sent not only a car for William's belongings, what few he had, but also a personal shopper with several suits and casual outfits, to help rebuild your wardrobe, as the note explained. William tried to refuse such extravagance, but the assistant insisted the clothes were already paid for and non-returnable. Before leaving for the corporate apartment, William spent time with Tyler, who had returned from school bursting with questions about the billionaire meeting. William answered as honestly as he could, emphasizing that Richard was, beneath all his wealth and success, just a person like anyone else. But does he have a helicopter? Tyler wanted to know. In my drawing he has a helicopter. William laughed. I didn't see one, but his office is pretty impressive. When it was time to say goodbye, Jasmine hugged William tightly. This isn't goodbye for good, she assured him. We'll see you at dinner on Saturday. And you're welcome here anytime, you know that. I know, William said, his voice thick with emotion. You gave me back my life, Jasmine. I'll never forget that. The corporate apartment was located in one of Richard's luxury buildings downtown, just a few blocks from Summit Tech headquarters. When William entered, he was momentarily overwhelmed by the space and elegance. A far cry from the park bench where Jasmine had found him just 2 weeks earlier. The apartment was fully furnished with modern, comfortable pieces. The refrigerator was stocked with food, and a welcome basket sat on the kitchen counter with a note from Aisha explaining that all utilities and expenses were covered for the next 3 months while longer-term arrangements were being made. William moved through the space in a daze, touching things as if to confirm they were real. The bedroom was larger than Jasmine's entire apartment, with a king-sized bed and a view of the city skyline. The bathroom had a walk-in shower with multiple jets and a separate soaking tub. It was luxurious, comfortable, and completely impersonal. As grateful as William was for these accommodations, he found himself missing the warmth of Jasmine's small apartment. The colorful throws on the couch, Tyler's artwork on the refrigerator, the sounds of their lives happening around him. The next day, William received another call from Aisha. Richard wanted to meet with him again, this time at the Summit Tech Foundation offices. A car was already on its way. The foundation occupied a separate building a few blocks from the main headquarters. It was smaller, less imposing, but still elegantly professional. Inside, William was led to a conference room where Richard was waiting with several staff members. "Dad," Richard greeted him, shaking his hand with more warmth than during their first meeting. "Thanks for coming on such short notice. How's the apartment?" "Very nice. Thank you," William said, still feeling slightly uncomfortable with such generosity. Richard introduced the staff, the foundation's director, a program coordinator, and a career counselor. For the next hour, they discussed various ways the foundation could help both William and the Turners. The mentorship program Richard had mentioned would provide William with a modest salary plus housing allowance. Jasmine would be offered a scholarship to complete her education. William hadn't even known she'd once been studying nursing before her husband got sick, and Tyler would be enrolled in the foundation's educational support program, which included tutoring, extracurricular activities, and a college fund. "This all seems too good to be true," William said when they had finished outlining everything. "Are you sure the foundation can do all this?" The director smiled. "Mr. Johnson, your son has been extremely generous in funding our programs. What we're offering is in line with our mission to provide sustainable assistance to families in need. We don't give handouts, we create opportunities." Richard, who had been mostly quiet during the presentation, added, "The foundation has helped hundreds of families, Dad. I'd like Jasmine and Tyler to be among them. And I'd like you to be part of our work here if you're willing." The sincerity in Richard's voice touched William deeply. This wasn't just about money or easing a guilty conscience. His son genuinely believed in the foundation's mission. And now he was offering William a chance to be part of something meaningful, to use his skills to help others as Jasmine had helped him. "I'd be honored," William said simply. Later, as Richard walked him out of the building, they paused on the steps. "I've been thinking about what you said," Richard began, "about it never being too late to try again." He looked at his father directly. "I'd like to try, Dad. I can't promise it will be easy or happen overnight, but I'd like to work on rebuilding our relationship." William's eyes misted over. "Nothing would make me happier, son." "One step at a time," Richard cautioned, but there was warmth in his voice that hadn't been there before. Saturday arrived quickly. William had spent the intervening days settling into the corporate apartment and meeting with foundation staff to learn more about the mentorship program. He had also visited Jasmine and Tyler each day, not wanting them to think he had forgotten them now that his circumstances had improved. Jasmine had been frantically worried about the dinner, trying on every outfit she owned and finding them all wanting. William finally convinced her to accept Richard's offer to send a stylist to help her find something appropriate for the restaurant. "I feel like Cinderella," she joked nervously as the stylist helped her choose a simple but elegant blue dress that complemented her warm brown skin and brought out her eyes. For Tyler, they selected a child-sized suit that made him look adorably grown up, though he complained about the tie until Jasmine agreed he could remove it after the main course. A limousine arrived to take all three of them to Escher. Tyler was beside himself with excitement, bouncing on the leather seats and pressing every button he could find. Jasmine kept telling him to settle down, but her own nervous energy was palpable. "Everything will be fine," William assured her as they pulled up to the restaurant. "Just be yourself. That's who Richard wants to meet." Azure was as exclusive as its reputation suggested. The maitre d' led them to a private dining room where Richard was already waiting. He was dressed more casually than during their meetings, in a blazer without a tie, and his smile seemed more relaxed. "Welcome," Richard said, stepping forward to greet them. He shook Jasmine's hand warmly. "Miss Turner, it's a pleasure to meet you. My father has told me how kind you've been to him." "Please call me Jasmine," she replied, clearly trying to hide her nervousness. "And it's been my pleasure. Your father is a wonderful man." Richard knelt down to Tyler's level. "And you must be Tyler. I got your drawing. Very creative. I especially liked the robot assistant." Tyler's eyes widened. "Did you bring your helicopter?" The adults laughed, breaking the tension. "Not tonight," Richard said with a smile. "But maybe someday I can show you how a real corporate office works. It's not quite as exciting as your drawing, though." The dinner progressed more comfortably than any of them might have expected. Richard was a gracious host, making sure everyone felt at ease. He asked Jasmine about her life, her work, and her interrupted nursing studies with genuine interest. When she explained how her husband's illness had forced her to drop out of school to work full-time, Richard nodded understandingly. "The Foundation Scholarship Program was actually inspired by stories like yours," he told her. "People with potential and ambition who get derailed by circumstances beyond their control." As they enjoyed their dessert, an elaborate chocolate creation that had Tyler's eyes bulging, Richard brought up the Foundation's offer. "We've prepared a complete package for you and Tyler," he explained to Jasmine. "Education support, medical coverage, career development. No strings attached except that you continue working toward your goals." Jasmine looked overwhelmed. "I don't know how to thank you." "Thank my father," Richard said, glancing at William with newfound respect. "He spoke very highly of you. And after meeting you, I can see why." Tyler, who had been surprisingly well behaved throughout dinner, suddenly piped up. "Are you and Mr. William friends again now? He was really sad that you didn't talk for a long time." The directness of the child's question created a moment of awkward silence. Richard looked at his father, something vulnerable flickering in his eyes. "We're working on it, Tyler," he said finally. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes and it takes time to fix them. But we're trying." William reached across the table and placed his hand over his son's briefly. "That's all anyone can ask for," he said softly. As the evening concluded, Richard insisted on driving them home personally rather than sending them in the limousine. He had a sleek sports car waiting outside, which thrilled Tyler to no end. "Perhaps not the most practical vehicle for 4 people," Richard admitted with a sheepish smile, "but we'll manage." With Tyler squeezed happily between William and Jasmine in the back seat, Richard drove through the city streets toward Jasmine's apartment. The conversation flowed naturally now, the initial stiffness of the evening having melted away. When they arrived, Richard walked them to the door. "I've enjoyed meeting you both," he told Jasmine and Tyler sincerely. "Will we see you again?" Tyler asked hopefully. Richard glanced at William, then back to Tyler. "Yes, I think you will. In fact, I was hoping all of you might join me for a picnic next weekend. I have a house outside the city with plenty of space for a certain young man to run around." Tyler's excited "yes" made them all laugh. As Jasmine took Tyler inside to get ready for bed, Richard and William stood together on the small landing. "Thank you," William said simply, "for everything you're doing for them. And for giving me another chance." Richard nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I've spent 20 years building a company, accumulating wealth, thinking that was what mattered. But seeing how happy you looked with them, a woman and child you've known for only 2 weeks, it made me realize what I've been missing." "It's never too late," William repeated his earlier words. "No," Richard agreed softly. "It's not." As William watched his son drive away, he felt a profound sense of gratitude. 2 weeks ago he had been homeless, hopeless, and alone. Now, because of one woman's kindness, he had found not only shelter but family, both the one he had lost and a new one he had never expected. Whatever challenges lay ahead, William knew he would face them differently now. Not alone but surrounded by people who cared. And that made all the difference in the world. Spring gave way to early summer, and with the changing season came changes in all their lives. William had been working at the Summit Tech Foundation for almost 2 months now, mentoring young people in basic carpentry and construction skills. The work gave him purpose and joy, and the modest salary combined with the housing allowance provided the security he had lacked for so long. Richard had been true to his word about working on their relationship. They met regularly for lunch or dinner, sometimes just the 2 of them, sometimes with Jasmine and Tyler as well. Each meeting brought them closer, as they gradually filled in the 20-year gap in their knowledge of each other's lives. Today was Sunday, and William was helping Jasmine prepare for a special dinner at her apartment. Richard was coming over, and Jasmine wanted everything to be perfect. She had insisted on cooking herself, refusing Richard's offer to have the meal catered. "He's always treating us to fancy restaurants," she had explained to William. "I want him to experience a real home-cooked meal for once." William smiled as he watched her move around the kitchen with confident efficiency. The scholarship from the foundation had allowed her to reduce her hours at the diner and resume her nursing studies. She was flourishing with the opportunity, her natural intelligence and compassion making her an excellent student. "Can I help with anything else?" William asked, having already set the table with the new dinnerware Richard had secretly purchased for her as a celebration gift when she aced her first round of exams. "Could you check on Tyler? He's supposed to be cleaning his room, but I have a feeling he might be playing video games instead." William chuckled and headed to the bedroom. Sure enough, Tyler was engrossed in the educational tablet Richard had given him, which had become his most prized possession. "Hey buddy," William said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Room cleaning going well?" Tyler looked up guiltily. "I was just taking a short break." "Ah, a very short break that's lasted. How long? Maybe an hour?" Tyler admitted with a grin. William ruffled the boy's hair affectionately. "Come on, let's get this place in shape before your mom comes checking. Richard will be here in less than an hour." Together they tackled the mess of toys, books, and clothes that had somehow exploded across every surface of the room. As they worked, Tyler peppered William with questions about Richard's childhood, eager for stories about his new Uncle Rich, as he had taken to calling him. Was he always smart? Did he have lots of friends? Did he like sports or video games? William answered as best he could, realizing with some sadness how many of these details he had missed during Richard's teenage years, when he had been so focused on work and the deteriorating relationship with his wife. "You know," William said thoughtfully, "you should ask Richard these questions yourself. I think he'd enjoy telling you about when he was your age." Tyler nodded seriously. "Mom says it's good for him to talk about regular stuff instead of just business things all the time." William smiled at the child's perceptiveness, or rather at Jasmine's perceptiveness, which Tyler was echoing. She was right, of course. Richard spent so much of his life in boardrooms and business meetings that he rarely had the opportunity for normal conversation. Just as they finished tidying the room, the doorbell rang. Tyler raced to answer it, with William following behind at a more sedate pace. Richard stood in the hallway, looking relaxed in jeans and a casual button-down shirt, a far cry from the formal CEO who had first greeted William in his office. He held a bouquet of flowers and a bottle of wine. "Uncle Rich!" Tyler exclaimed, launching himself at Richard for a hug. Richard caught him with his free arm, now accustomed to the boy's enthusiastic greetings. "Hey sport," he said warmly. "How's that arm doing?" Tyler's cast had come off the previous week. "All better. The doctor said my bones heal super fast because I'm still growing." Richard handed the flowers to Jasmine, who had emerged from the kitchen wiping her hands on a dish towel. "These are beautiful," she said, accepting them with a smile. "Thank you." "Something smells amazing," Richard commented, following her into the apartment. He greeted William with a warm handshake that turned into a brief hug, a new development in their relationship that still caught William by surprise each time it happened. "Jasmine's been cooking all day," William informed him. "She's determined to show you what a real family dinner is like." "I'm looking forward to it," Richard said sincerely. "Most of my meals are either in restaurants with clients or taken at my desk between meetings." As Jasmine arranged the flowers in a vase, she asked casually, "How's Sarah? Will she be joining us for the foundation picnic next month?" William noticed a slight flush on Richard's cheeks at the mention of Sarah Chin, the foundation's director, with whom Richard had been spending an increasing amount of time recently. "She's well," Richard replied, trying to sound nonchalant. "And yes, she'll be at the picnic. In a professional capacity, of course." Jasmine and William exchanged knowing looks. In the 2 months since Richard had re-entered William's life, they had all noticed how his face lit up whenever Sarah's name was mentioned. The foundation director was intelligent, compassionate, and down-to-earth, qualities that seemed to attract Richard despite his usual preference for dating within his social circle of models and socialites. "Of course," Jasmine agreed with a hint of amusement in her voice. "Professional capacity." Tyler, bored with the adult conversation, tugged at Richard's sleeve. "Can we play catch before dinner? I've been practicing like you showed me." "Sure thing," Richard agreed readily, seeming relieved at the change of subject. "Let's head outside." As the two went out to the small courtyard behind the apartment building, Jasmine turned to William with a smile. "Those two have really bonded, haven't they?" William nodded, watching through the window as his son patiently showed Tyler how to improve his throwing technique. "Richard would have made a good father," he said softly. I'm glad he has a chance to experience a bit of that with Tyler. It goes both ways, Jasmine pointed out. Tyler needs male role models in his life. Between you and Richard, he's getting some wonderful examples. The mention of being role models together, father and son united again, warmed William's heart. His relationship with Richard was healing more quickly than he had dared to hope, and he knew much of that was due to Jasmine's gentle influence on both of them. Dinner was a lively affair, with Tyler dominating the conversation with stories from school and questions about Richard's latest tech projects. Richard, for his part, seemed to relish the normalcy of it all, passing dishes around a family table, laughing at a child's jokes, having conversations that had nothing to do with stock prices or board meetings. After the meal, as they enjoyed the apple pie Jasmine had baked for dessert, Richard cleared his throat. I actually have some news to share with all of you, he said, setting down his fork. Is it about the spaceship? Tyler asked excitedly. Are you going to the moon? Richard laughed. No, not yet. The space tourism project is still years away from completion. He looked at William. It's about the old Johnson family home. William stilled. What about it? The house where Richard had grown up, where William had lived with his wife until their divorce, had been sold years ago when William could no longer afford the upkeep after his wife's death. I bought it back, Richard said simply. It came on the market last month and I had my real estate team make an offer immediately. The sale was finalized yesterday. William was speechless. That house held so many memories, both sweet and painful. It had been the backdrop for Richard's childhood, for family Christmases and summer barbecues, but also for bitter arguments and the final breakdown of his marriage. I know it might seem strange, Richard continued, noting William's silence. But after reconnecting with you, I started thinking about our family history. That house was part of it. I thought maybe we could restore it together, you with your carpentry skills, me with the resources. Make new memories there to balance out the old ones. The thoughtfulness of the gesture touched William deeply. I'd like that, son, he managed to say through the emotion tightening his throat. I was thinking it could be your permanent home, once the renovations are complete, Richard added. The corporate apartment is fine for now, but it's not really a home. That's very generous, William began, but Richard cut him off with a shake of his head. It's not generosity, Dad. It's your house too. It always was. Jasmine, sensing the emotional weight of the moment, quietly began clearing the dessert plates. Tyler, why don't you help me with the dishes? She suggested. But I want to hear more about the house. Tyler protested. And you will, she assured him. But let's give Mr. William and Richard a moment to talk. Once Jasmine and Tyler had moved to the kitchen, Richard leaned forward, his expression earnest. There's something else I wanted to discuss with you. Something I've been thinking about a lot lately. What is it? William asked. Jasmine, Richard said simply. I've been watching how she is with you, with Tyler, even with me. She's remarkable, Dad. The kind of person who gives without expecting anything in return. Who sees the best in people even when they're at their worst. William nodded, feeling a swell of pride and affection. She is. I've never met anyone quite like her. The thing is, Richard continued, lowering his voice so it wouldn't carry to the kitchen, I think you care about her as more than just a friend who helped you in a tough time. And I think she might feel the same way about you. William's eyes widened. Richard, I'm 73 years old. She's barely in her 30s. So, age is just a number when it comes to genuine connection. And you're healthier and more vibrant now than you were 2 months ago. The foundation doctor who examined you said you have the constitution of a man 15 years younger. William shook his head, though part of him thrilled at the idea. It would be inappropriate. I'm old enough to be her father. Grandfather, technically, Richard said with a small smile. But who cares? Life is too short to deny yourself happiness because of what others might think. God knows I've wasted enough time letting pride and resentment keep me from the people who matter. He reached across the table and placed a hand on William's arm. Just think about it, okay? You deserve happiness, Dad. And so does she. Before William could respond, Tyler burst back into the dining room, breaking the moment. Mom says I can show you my new video game, Uncle Rich. The one with the robots. Richard laughed and allowed himself to be pulled toward Tyler's corner of the bedroom, casting one last meaningful glance at his father over his shoulder. William sat alone at the table, his thoughts in turmoil. Could Richard be right? Did he have feelings for Jasmine beyond gratitude and friendship? And could she possibly see him as anything more than an elderly man she had helped out of kindness? The idea seemed absurd on the surface. Yet William couldn't deny the way his heart lifted whenever Jasmine entered a room, or how he found himself thinking of ways to make her smile. He had attributed these feelings to simple gratitude and paternal affection, but perhaps there was more to it. Jasmine returned from the kitchen, drying her hands on a dish towel. She sat in the chair Richard had vacated, her warm brown eyes concerned as she studied William's face. "Are you okay?" she asked. "That was quite a gesture from Richard, offering you the family home." William nodded, trying to focus on that conversation rather than the one that had followed. "It was. Sometimes I still can't believe how much has changed in just 2 months." "You've both been working hard to rebuild your relationship," Jasmine said. "It's beautiful to see. None of it would have happened without you," William pointed out. "You're the one who brought us back together." Jasmine blushed slightly at the praise. "I just gave you a place to stay and a meal. You did the hard part, reaching out to Richard after all those years." "You did much more than that and you know it," William insisted. "You showed kindness to a stranger when most people would have walked past. You opened your home and your heart." He paused, suddenly aware of how intensely he was speaking. "That kind of compassion is rare, Jasmine. You're a special person." Her blush deepened and she looked down at her hands. "Thank you, William. That means a lot coming from you." An unexpected impulse seized William, the urge to reach across the table and take her hand in his. But before he could act on it, Tyler's excited voice called from the bedroom. "Mom, come see. Uncle Rich is helping me beat the level boss." The moment passed. Jasmine stood with a smile. "Duty calls. Will you join us?" William nodded, rising from his chair. "Of course." As he followed her to the bedroom, William reflected on Richard's words. Did he have feelings for Jasmine? Perhaps. But even if he did, and even if by some miracle she returned them, was it fair to her? She was young with her whole life ahead of her. She deserved someone who could share that life for decades to come, not a man in his 70s. Yet as he watched her laugh at Tyler and Richard's antics with the video game, a warmth spread through William's chest that he couldn't deny. Whatever these feelings were, they were real. And for now that realization was enough. Summer was in full bloom, and the July heat had settled over the city like a warm blanket. William had been spending more time at the old Johnson family house, working alongside contractors to restore the place to its former glory. Richard had given him free rein over the renovation decisions, wanting the house to feel like William's home again. Today, however, William wasn't at the house. He was sitting in a cafe near the hospital where Jasmine was doing her clinical rotation as part of her nursing program. They had fallen into the habit of meeting for lunch on the days she had clinicals, a ritual they both looked forward to. William checked his watch for the third time in 10 minutes. Jasmine was late, which was unusual. Just as he was beginning to worry, he spotted her hurrying through the cafe door, still in her student nurse scrubs. "I'm so sorry," she said breathlessly, sliding into the chair across from him. "We had an emergency case come in right at the end of my shift and I couldn't leave." "No need to apologize," William assured her, pushing a cup of coffee toward her. "I ordered your usual. It might be a bit cooler now, though." "You're a lifesaver," she said gratefully, taking a long sip. "I've been on my feet since 5 this morning." William studied her face, noting the shadows under her eyes. "You're working too hard between your classes, clinicals, and still picking up shifts at the diner." Jasmine shrugged. "I'm used to it. And it's not forever. Once I finish the program and get my RN license, I'll have regular hours and better pay." "Still, you need to take care of yourself," William insisted. "Tyler needs his mother healthy and rested." At the mention of her son, Jasmine's face brightened. "Speaking of Tyler, he can't stop talking about the treehouse. Every day it's, 'When can we go see Mr. Williams' house? Is the treehouse finished yet?" William chuckled. The treehouse had been his special project during the renovation, a belated fulfillment of Tyler's wish. Richard had immediately approved the addition when William suggested it, even bringing in an architect to ensure the structure would be safe and durable. "We're putting the finishing touches on it this week," William said. "It should be ready for its first official visitor by the weekend." "He'll be over the moon," Jasmine said with a smile. They ordered lunch, sandwiches and salads, and fell into easy conversation. Jasmine talked about her clinical experiences, while William shared updates on the house renovation. It was comfortable, familiar, and William found himself as always reluctant for their time together to end. "Oh, I almost forgot to tell you," Jasmine said as they were finishing their meal. "I bumped into Sarah Chin at the foundation office yesterday when I went to drop off my scholarship progress report." "Oh." William tried to sound casual, though he immediately noticed how Jasmine's eyes sparkled with mischief. She mentioned that she and Richard had dinner together on Tuesday. Not a business dinner either. William smiled. Good for them. Richard needs someone like Sarah in his life. Someone who sees him as a person, not a billionaire or a CEO. Exactly what I was thinking, Jasmine agreed. And she seems to genuinely care about him, not his money or status. Just like someone else I know, William said softly, meeting her eyes. Jasmine looked momentarily confused, then understanding dawned. You mean me? With you. She laughed lightly. Well, you weren't exactly flashing wealth when I found you on that park bench, William. No, but you knew I was Richard's father before you invited me to dinner at Azure. You could have tried to use that connection for your own benefit, but you never did. Of course not, Jasmine said, suddenly serious. That's not why I helped you. I didn't even know Richard was your son until later. I know, William said simply. That's what makes you special. A slight blush colored Jasmine's cheeks and she looked down at her empty plate. William had noticed she'd been doing that more often lately, blushing when he complimented her or when their eyes met for too long. Or perhaps he was just noticing it more because he'd been looking for it since his conversation with Richard. How is the apartment hunting going? William asked, changing the subject to something safer. Jasmine had been looking for a larger place for herself and Tyler, now that her financial situation had improved thanks to the foundation's support. Still looking, she sighed. Everything in a decent school district is so expensive, even with the housing allowance from the scholarship. I don't want to move Tyler too far from his friends, but I also want him to have his own bedroom. You know, William began hesitantly, the Johnson house has plenty of room. The renovation will be finished in about a month. Richard and I were talking and we both thought, well, maybe you and Tyler might consider moving in there. At least temporarily until you find the right place. Jasmine's eyes widened. Move in with you? William, that's too generous. We couldn't impose like that. It wouldn't be an imposition at all, William assured her. The house has 5 bedrooms. It gets lonely there with just me. And Tyler would have the treehouse, a big yard to play in and a much better school district. I don't know, Jasmine said, clearly conflicted. It's a lovely offer, but... Just think about it, William said, not wanting to pressure her. No rush to decide. Jasmine nodded, though William could see the wheels turning in her mind. He knew she was practical enough to see the benefits of the arrangement, but also proud enough to be wary of accepting too much help, even from friends. After lunch, William walked Jasmine back to the hospital for her afternoon class. As they stood outside the entrance, she surprised him by giving him a quick hug. Thank you for lunch. And for the offer about the house. I promise I'll think about it. William watched her disappear through the hospital doors, a familiar warmth spreading through his chest. These feelings had only grown stronger over the past weeks, despite his attempts to view Jasmine in a strictly platonic light. Richard's observation had hit closer to home than William wanted to admit. Later that evening, William was at the Johnson house, working late to finish some trim work in what would become the main living room. The house was coming along beautifully. The contractors had addressed the structural issues, updated the electrical and plumbing systems, and completed most of the major renovations. Now it was down to the finishing touches, paint, trim, fixtures, the details that would make the house feel like a home again. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway drew William's attention. Through the window he saw Richard's sleek sports car and smiled. His son had been stopping by regularly to check on the renovation progress and, William suspected, to spend time together outside the formal context of the foundation or business meetings. Dad. Richard called as he entered through the front door. You still here? In the living room, William replied, setting down his tools. Richard appeared in the doorway, looking slightly out of place in his expensive suit amidst the sawdust and paint cans. Wow, this room is really coming together, he commented, surveying the space. Mom would have loved what you're doing with it. The mention of his ex-wife no longer brought the sharp pang of regret it once did. She always did have good taste, William agreed. Remember how she used to rearrange the furniture every season? Richard laughed. How could I forget? I'd come home from school and all the furniture would be in different places. Used to drive you crazy. Because I was always the one who had to help move the heavy pieces, William said with a chuckle. These shared memories had become a healing balm for their relationship. Rather than avoiding the past, they had begun to revisit it together, acknowledging both the good times and the difficult ones. I brought dinner, Richard said, holding up a paper bag. Thought you might be hungry after working all day. They sat at the makeshift table William had set up in the kitchen, sharing the gourmet takeout Richard had brought. As they ate, Richard filled William in on his latest projects at Summit Tech and more tentatively on his growing relationship with Sarah. We're taking things slow, he explained. She's different from women I've dated in the past. More real. William nodded understandingly. Those are the relationships worth investing in. Speaking of relationships, Richard said, casually shifting the conversation, have you given any more thought to what we discussed? About you and Jasmine? William sighed. It's complicated, Richard. Yes, I care for her deeply. And sometimes I think maybe she might feel something for me too. But the age difference is significant but not insurmountable, Richard interjected. Dad, I've seen how she looks at you. It's not just gratitude or friendship. Even if that's true, William said, what could I offer her? She's young, beautiful, intelligent. She could have anyone. She could. But maybe she wants you. Richard leaned forward earnestly. Look, I'm not saying you should propose tomorrow. But at least be honest with her about your feelings. Give her the chance to make her own decision. William was silent for a long moment, considering his son's advice. I offered to let her and Tyler move in here once the renovations are complete, he finally said. As a temporary arrangement until she finds a larger apartment. Richard raised an eyebrow. And what did she say? That she'd think about it. Well, that's a start, Richard said with a smile. A chance to see if domestic life together might work. It's not like that, William protested. It's just practical. This house is too big for just me and they need more space. If you say so, Richard replied, his tone making it clear he wasn't buying the purely practical explanation. Just promise me you won't let fear stop you from taking a chance on happiness. I've seen too much of that in my own life. After Richard left, William remained at the kitchen table, turning their conversation over in his mind. Was his son right? Was he letting fear hold him back from pursuing a relationship with Jasmine? And if he did pursue it, what would that mean for all of them? Himself, Jasmine, Tyler, even Richard? The next day, William was putting the final touches on the treehouse when his phone rang. It was Jasmine. I've been thinking about your offer, she said without preamble. About Tyler and me moving into the Johnson house. And? William prompted when she paused. I think it makes sense. For now, at least. If you're sure it wouldn't be an imposition. William's heart leaped. I'm absolutely sure. When would you want to move in? The lease on my apartment is up at the end of next month. Would that timing work? Perfectly, William assured her. The renovation should be completely finished by then. After they hung up, William stood in the treehouse doorway, gazing out at the backyard of the Johnson house, a house that would soon be filled with life again. Tyler playing in the yard, Jasmine studying at the kitchen table, the sounds of family once more echoing through rooms that had been silent for too long. Whether or not anything romantic developed between him and Jasmine, William knew one thing for certain. His life had been transformed by her kindness. From a homeless man on a park bench to a man with purpose, family, and hope for the future. All because one woman had seen his humanity when others had looked away. Whatever happened next, he was grateful for that chance encounter that had changed everything. And as he descended from the treehouse, William made a promise to himself. He would find the courage to be honest with Jasmine about his feelings, whatever the outcome might be. After a lifetime of regrets, this was one chance he couldn't let slip away. The day of the move arrived with perfect late summer weather. The Johnson house stood ready, its renovation complete. Fresh paint gleamed on the walls, new hardwood floors shone in the sunlight streaming through tall windows, and the gardens had been restored to their former glory. William had spent the previous week preparing rooms for Jasmine and Tyler. The main guest bedroom had been converted into Jasmine's space, with a soft new queen-sized bed, a desk for her studies, and bookshelves for her nursing textbooks. For Tyler, William had transformed the smallest bedroom into a boy's dream, with space-themed wallpaper, Tyler's current obsession. A loft bed with a desk underneath and shelves for his growing collection of books and toys. Richard had arranged for professional movers to handle Jasmine's belongings, despite her protests that she didn't have that much to move. Now, William stood on the front porch, watching as the moving truck pulled into the driveway, followed by Richard's car with Jasmine and Tyler inside. Tyler was the first to burst out of the car, racing toward William with excitement. Is the treehouse ready? Can I see it now? Is that my window up there? William laughed, ruffling the boy's hair. Yes, yes, and yes. But let's help your mom get settled first, okay? Jasmine approached more slowly, her expression a mixture of gratitude and slight embarrassment. This is all too much, William, she said quietly. The movers, this beautiful house. I feel like we're taking advantage. Nonsense, William replied firmly. Having you and Tyler here will make this house a home again. You're doing me a favor. Richard joined them, instructing the movers about which boxes went where. Dad's right, he told Jasmine. This place was feeling too much like a museum. It needs a family. The word family hung in the air between them. Jasmine glanced at William, then quickly looked away. They hadn't discussed his offer beyond the practical aspects. Which rooms they would use, how they would share the common spaces, who would handle which household tasks. The deeper implications of their living arrangement had remained unspoken. The move-in went smoothly. By evening, most of Jasmine and Tyler's belongings had been unpacked and arranged in their new rooms. Richard had insisted on taking them all out to dinner to celebrate, and now they were returning home, Tyler nearly asleep in the back seat of Richard's car. Let me carry him in, William offered as they pulled into the driveway. He's had quite a day. Gently lifting the drowsy boy from the car, William carried him into the house and up to his new bedroom. Tyler stirred slightly as William laid him on the bed. Is this home now? Tyler murmured sleepily. Yes, buddy, William replied softly. This is home now. Good, Tyler said, his eyes already closing again. I like being here with you and Mom. William's heart swelled as he removed Tyler's shoes and pulled the covers over him. Downstairs, he could hear Richard and Jasmine talking quietly in the kitchen. As he descended the stairs, he caught the tail end of their conversation. Just want you both to be happy, Richard was saying. He's changed so much since he met you. William cleared his throat as he entered the kitchen, and both turned to look at him. Tyler's out like a light, he reported. Didn't even need a bedtime story. All the excitement tired him out, Jasmine said with a smile. Thank you for setting up his room so beautifully. He loves it. Richard glanced at his watch. I should get going. Early meeting tomorrow. He hugged Jasmine goodbye, then embraced his father. Enjoy your first night in the family home, he said. All of you. After Richard left, William and Jasmine found themselves alone in the kitchen, an unfamiliar awkwardness between them. They had spent countless hours together over the past months, but this was different. They were now sharing a home, embarking on a new phase of their relationship, whatever that relationship might be. Would you like some tea? William offered, breaking the silence. Or there's wine if you prefer. Tea would be lovely, Jasmine said, looking relieved at the mundane suggestion. As William put the kettle on and prepared 2 mugs, Jasmine wandered around the kitchen, running her hand over the smooth countertops and peering into cabinets. This kitchen is a chef's dream, she commented. I can't wait to cook in here. It's all yours, William told her. I'm a passable cook at best. Always have been. Then I'll teach you, Jasmine said, her eyes lighting up. Tyler and I love cooking together. You can join our little culinary team. The easy way she included him in family activities touched William deeply. I'd like that, he said softly. They took their tea to the living room, settling on opposite ends of the comfortable sofa. Through the large windows they could see the backyard bathed in moonlight, the treehouse a shadowy silhouette against the night sky. I can't thank you enough for all of this, Jasmine said after a moment. You've changed our lives, William. He shook his head. You changed mine first, remember? I was a homeless old man when you found me. You were never just a homeless old man to me, Jasmine said firmly. From the first moment I saw you on that bench, I knew you were someone special. William's heart quickened at her words. Special? How could you have known that? Jasmine looked down at her tea, a small smile playing on her lips. There was a dignity about you even in those circumstances. And when you spoke, I could hear the kindness in your voice. I just knew. William was silent for a moment, absorbing her words. Gathering his courage, he set his tea down and shifted slightly closer to her on the sofa. Jasmine, he began, his voice soft but steady, there's something I need to tell you. Something I've been thinking about for a while now. She looked up, her brown eyes meeting his. What is it? These past few months have been the happiest of my life, William said. Not just because I reconnected with Richard or because I'm no longer homeless, but because of you. He paused, searching for the right words. You've brought light back into my life in a way I never expected. Jasmine's expression softened, but she remained silent, waiting for him to continue. I know this might seem inappropriate, William went on, his voice growing more uncertain. There's the age difference and you're a young woman with your whole life ahead of you. But I've developed feelings for you that go beyond friendship or gratitude. And I felt you should know, even if you don't feel the same way. There. He had said it. After weeks of internal debate, of conversations with Richard, of analyzing every smile and blush and touch, William had finally put his feelings into words. Now he held his breath, waiting for Jasmine's response. She looked down at her hands for a long moment, then back up at him. "William," she began, and his heart sank at her serious tone. Here came the gentle rejection he had been preparing himself for. "I've been struggling with similar feelings," she continued, surprising him. "At first I thought it was just admiration and respect. You're such a good man, kind, wise, talented." She smiled shyly. "But then I started looking forward to our lunches a little too much. I found myself thinking about you when you weren't around. Wondering what you would think of things I saw or experienced." Hope flickered in William's chest. "Are you saying?" "I'm saying that age is just a number," Jasmine stated firmly. "I care about who you are, not when you were born." "But," she hesitated, "there's Tyler to consider. He's already grown so attached to you. If we were to explore these feelings and it didn't work out." "I understand," William said quickly. "The last thing I want is to disrupt his life. He's been through enough already. Which is why I think we should take things very slowly," Jasmine concluded. "Now that we're living under the same roof, we have time to see if these feelings develop into something lasting. We can get to know each other even better, see how we function together on a daily basis." William felt a weight lift from his shoulders. She hadn't rejected him. In fact, she shared his feelings but was being thoughtful and cautious, as was her nature. "Slow sounds perfect," he agreed with a smile. "We have all the time in the world." Jasmine's eyes crinkled with warmth. "So we're clear, this isn't me saying no. This is me saying, let's see where this goes while being mindful of all the lives involved." William nodded, understanding completely. "That's all I could ask for." They talked late into the night, sharing more of their histories, dreams, and fears than they ever had before. William told her about his marriage, the good early years and the difficult later ones. Jasmine spoke of James, the love they had shared, and the devastating loss of watching him fade away. "He made me promise to be happy again someday," she said softly. "I thought he was being optimistic. I couldn't imagine ever feeling that way about someone else." "And now?" William asked gently. Jasmine reached across the sofa and took his hand in hers. "Now I think he knew me better than I knew myself." That simple touch, her warm hand holding his weathered one, conveyed more than words could express. It was acceptance, connection, possibility. William squeezed her hand lightly, marveling at how right it felt. When they finally said goodnight, standing at the top of the stairs where their paths diverged to separate bedrooms, William resisted the urge to kiss her. They had agreed on slow and he would honor that. Instead, he brought her hand to his lips and pressed a gentle kiss to her knuckles. "Welcome home, Jasmine," he said softly. Her smile was radiant. "Good night, William." As he lay in bed that night, William reflected on the extraordinary turn his life had taken. From despair to hope, from loneliness to connection, from a park bench to a home filled with love. However their relationship developed, he was already blessed beyond measure. The following weeks fell into a comfortable rhythm. Jasmine continued her nursing studies and her part-time shifts at the diner, while William divided his time between the Foundation's mentorship program and his own projects around the house. Tyler thrived in his new school, making friends quickly and excelling in his classes. Together they formed a family unit that felt surprisingly natural. They shared meals, helped Tyler with homework, took walks in the neighborhood, and spent quiet evenings playing board games or watching movies. Richard visited often, sometimes bringing Sarah along, and their expanded family gatherings were filled with laughter and easy conversation. One crisp Saturday in early October, Richard proposed a family outing to the apple orchard outside the city. Tyler was ecstatic at the idea, having never been apple picking before. "Can Sarah come too?" he asked Richard, who had become firmly established as Uncle Rich in the boys' world. Richard glanced at William and Jasmine before answering. "If she's not busy, I'm sure she'd love to join us." "The more the merrier," Jasmine said warmly. She had grown quite fond of Sarah over the past months, appreciating the woman's intelligence, compassion, and the positive influence she had on Richard. The day of the outing dawned clear and bright, perfect weather for apple picking. They drove to the orchard in 2 cars, Richard and Sarah in his sports car, William, Jasmine, and Tyler in Jasmine's newly purchased used sedan, a practical upgrade from her old car, made possible by her improved finances. The orchard was bustling with families enjoying the fall tradition. Tyler ran ahead excitedly, pointing out the biggest, reddest apples he could spot. William and Jasmine followed at a more leisurely pace, their hands occasionally brushing as they walked. They had maintained their agreement to go slow, but small touches and meaningful glances had become more frequent between them. "He's in heaven," Jasmine observed, watching Tyler race from tree to tree. "Look at that smile." "It's good to see him so happy," William agreed. "He's adjusted so well to all the changes in his life." "Children are resilient," Jasmine said. "And he's had plenty of support." She glanced at William with warm eyes. "From all of us." "Tyler did most of the work," William said modestly. "That boy has energy to spare." "He adores you," Jasmine said softly. "You know that, don't you?" William nodded, his throat tightening with emotion. "The feeling is mutual. He's an amazing kid. You've done an incredible job raising him." "We're raising him now," Jasmine corrected gently. "He looks to you as much as to me these days." The simple statement touched William deeply. "I never thought I'd have this chance again," he admitted. "To be part of a family, to watch a child grow. After I failed with Richard." "You didn't fail," Jasmine insisted. "You made mistakes, yes. But look at your relationship now. Look at the man Richard has become. There's so much of you in him. His generosity, his sense of responsibility, his capacity for love." William smiled at her fierce defense of him. "You always see the best in me." "I see you," Jasmine said simply. She leaned in and kissed him softly. "All of you. The good and the not so perfect. And I love what I see." William held her close, savoring the moment. The ring he had purchased was hidden upstairs in his dresser drawer, waiting for Christmas morning. He had spoken to Tyler already, explaining his intentions and asking for the boy's blessing. Tyler had given it enthusiastically, offering suggestions for how William should propose that ranged from skywriting to singing to hiding the ring in a piece of cake. In the end, William had decided on something simpler: a quiet moment on Christmas morning, surrounded by the people he loved most in the world. Richard and Sarah would be joining them for the day, making the family circle complete. 3 days before Christmas, a massive snowstorm hit the city, blanketing everything in white. Schools closed early and Jasmine's classes were canceled. They spent the afternoon building snowmen in the backyard and having an impromptu snowball fight that left them all breathless with laughter and covered in snow. As evening approached, they retreated indoors to warm up. While Jasmine helped Tyler with his shower, William prepared dinner, a hearty stew that had been simmering in the slow cooker all day. The domestic scene was one he had never imagined for himself again, especially during those dark days on the park bench. The park bench. The thought stopped William in his tracks. Suddenly, he knew exactly how he wanted to propose to Jasmine. The next morning, while Jasmine was at her clinical rotation, William made a phone call to Richard, explaining his new plan. His son was immediately supportive, offering to help with the arrangements and to take Tyler for a few hours on Christmas Eve to give William and Jasmine some time alone. On Christmas Eve afternoon, as planned, Richard arrived to pick up Tyler, ostensibly to take him last-minute shopping for Jasmine's gift. The boy winked conspicuously at William as they left, barely able to contain his excitement about the secret they shared. "Would you like to go for a walk?" William asked Jasmine after they had gone. "It's beautiful outside with all the snow, and we have a few hours before we need to start preparing dinner." "That sounds lovely," Jasmine agreed, bundling up in her winter coat, scarf and gloves. They walked hand in hand through the neighborhood, admiring the holiday decorations on the surrounding homes. The day was clear and crisp, the fresh snow crunching beneath their boots. William guided them gradually toward the park where they had first met, his heart beating faster as they approached. "Remember this place?" he asked as they entered the familiar green space, now transformed into a winter wonderland. Jasmine looked around, recognition dawning in her eyes. "Of course. This is where we met." Her gaze fell on a specific bench, now cleared of snow and decorated with a simple red bough. "That's the bench where you were sitting." William nodded, leading her toward it. "That day changed my life forever," he said softly. "I was at my lowest point, with nothing but regrets behind me and little hope for the future." They reached the bench, and William gestured for her to sit. As she did, she noticed something small and red nestled in the center of the bough, a velvet ring box. "William," she whispered, her eyes widening. He took the box and knelt before her, ignoring the cold snow seeping through his pants. "Jasmine, that day you showed kindness to a stranger, you set in motion a chain of events that led to this moment. You helped me reconnect with my son, find purpose again, and most importantly, discover love when I least expected it." He opened the box, revealing a simple but elegant diamond ring. "You and Tyler have become my family in every way that matters. I love you both more than I ever thought possible." Would you do me the extraordinary honor of becoming my wife? Tears filled Jasmine's eyes, sparkling like the snow around them. Yes, she said without hesitation. Yes, William. I love you. With slightly trembling hands, William slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. He rose from his kneeling position and sat beside her on the bench, the same bench where their story had begun, and pulled her into a warm embrace. Their kiss was sweet and tender, full of promise for the future they would build together. When they finally broke apart, Jasmine laughed softly, wiping away happy tears. Tyler's going to be over the moon, she said. He's been dropping hints for weeks about us getting married. He already knows, William admitted. I asked for his blessing. He gave it quite enthusiastically and had many creative suggestions for this proposal. Jasmine laughed again. Let me guess, skywriting? A flash mob? A singing telegram? All of the above, plus a few more elaborate scenarios, William confirmed with a chuckle. But I thought this place held special meaning for us. It's where our journey started. It's perfect, Jasmine assured him, looking around at the snow-covered park. Full circle. They sat together on the bench for a while longer, planning their future, talking about the wedding, small and intimate, they both agreed, and marveling at the unlikely path that had brought them together. As the afternoon light began to fade, they walked home hand in hand, Jasmine's ring catching the last rays of the winter sun. The house welcomed them back with warmth and light, their Christmas tree visible through the front window. Richard's car was in the driveway, and as they entered, they were greeted by Tyler's excited voice. Did you ask her? Did she say yes? Can I see the ring? William and Jasmine exchanged amused glances. Yes to all three questions, William confirmed, and Tyler let out a whoop of joy. Richard approached them, Sarah at his side. Congratulations, he said warmly, embracing first Jasmine and then his father. I couldn't be happier for you both. I have news too, Richard added after the initial excitement had calmed somewhat. He looked at Sarah, who nodded encouragingly. Sarah and I are engaged as well. We were going to wait until tomorrow to announce it, but it seems like the right moment now. More congratulations and embraces followed as the two couples shared their happiness. Tyler, feeling left out of all the adult excitement, tugged at William's sleeve. Does this mean you'll be my dad now? He asked, his expression serious. William knelt down to the boy's level, meeting his eyes. I would be honored to be your dad, Tyler. But James will always be your father too. We'll make sure you never forget him. Tyler nodded solemnly. Mom says he's watching over us from heaven. Do you think he's happy about you marrying Mom? William considered this thoughtfully. I think he would be happy knowing that your mom has found love again, and that you have someone who cares about you both very much. This seemed to satisfy Tyler. I think so too, he declared. Then, with the quick change of focus only children can manage, he added, Can we have Christmas cookies now? The adults laughed, the solemn moment breaking into joy again. As they moved to the kitchen for cookies and hot chocolate, William caught Jasmine's eye across the room. The love he saw reflected there filled him with profound gratitude. From homeless to hopeful, from alone to surrounded by family, from empty to overflowing with love, William's journey had come full circle. And now, with Jasmine by his side, a new circle was beginning. Later that night, as the house grew quiet and Tyler finally fell asleep after the excitement of the day, William and Jasmine stood together at the living room window, watching snowflakes begin to fall gently from the night sky. Merry Christmas, my love, William whispered, holding her close. Merry Christmas, Jasmine replied, leaning into his embrace. The first of many. As the snow continued to fall, covering the world in a blanket of white, William reflected on the unexpected gift life had given him. A second chance at love, at family, at happiness. All because one kind-hearted woman had seen beyond his circumstances to the person within. In a world that often moved too fast to notice those in need, Jasmine had stopped to help a stranger. And in doing so, she had changed both their lives forever. Their story, a testament to the power of kindness, the healing of forgiveness, and the unexpected paths love can take, had only just begun. And whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, strengthened by the journey that had brought them to this moment.